Hi friends, today's a super exciting day for Yaron and myself because Dapr has become a graduated project. So we thought, what's better than to sit down and have a little chat about the project, why it came about and where we think the future is going to go. So Yaron, can tell me, when we reflect back all those 6 years ago when we first started the project, what was the why of the project? Why did we kick it all off?
Why? Well, if you look at this guy here, Go came about in 2010, and it really became the cloud-native language up until today. Docker was built on top of Go, and then Kubernetes came along to be able to orchestrate a lot of Docker containers. And then you eventually had this networking stack that was built, and then monitoring stack, and it was all very infrastructure focused, very, very DevOps focused. But it wasn't until 2018, 2019 that really application frameworks kind of became a thing, because application developers now need to navigate the complexities of trying to deploy their applications on top of Kubernetes and other really complex infrastructure. And so Dapr really came to serve what we call the silent majority of cloud-native developers and really give developers a tool that allows them to focus on business logic and not infrastructure.
Yeah, and I just remember working as well on lots of Azure services, and I spent a lot of time with enterprises, and you just saw them struggling to build applications for the cloud. What did that all meant? And they were like stitching together their own code, building their own platforms, and you just felt their pain, didn't you? Of like, oh my gosh, why are you kind of reinventing the pattern the whole time on these things?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a backlog and you're measured on hitting that backlog and making sure that you can ship your code, the last thing you want to do is think about, oh, is this consumer group code actually going to work the way I want it to work in production? Or how do I do this concurrent loop? Or how do I create this really complex workflow and fetch a secret and do cryptography?
Exactly.
Those are not questions developers want to think about. They only want to think about, oh, is my business logic correct? And am I testing it thoroughly
Exactly,
enough?
yeah. So it was all about abstractions, really, wasn't
Yes.
it? It was like, okay, there's a bunch of abstractions that we can do because you're building an event-driven application, you're talking to another service, you're doing messaging between things, you're holding state, and how is it we can just provide a set of abstractions that make it easy for you to stitch together and sort of hide that complexity? And so if you look at the first version of Dapr when it came out, we had service invocation API called between two services, we had pub-sub messaging, we had state, we had bindings, that way of kind of interacting with other things, and they were like all abstractions, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But, the project really changed from how we began. It started out with these low-level abstractions. I have my own answer for how I think the project changed, but I'm really looking forward to hearing your answer.
Well, one of the things I just loved when we first did the project was that, one of the things that was a higher level abstraction again, which was actors, actually. And actors was really how you took service invocation and state and bound it together to create this higher level stateful functions. Like if you look at all the functions runtimes today, they're all kind of stateless. They fire, they kind of keep something for 15 minutes and then disappear around these things. And we said, the actors concept was bring together two low-level APIs and create a high-level framework around those things. And so I always think that we continue to push the boundaries, whether you're building high-level frameworks like that or you're integrating with other application frameworks as well, like Spring Boot or .NET or Express around those things, and bringing in other technologies as well. We integrated deeply with other CNCF technologies like Spiffy and OpenTelemetry and
yeah, and that's just from the Dapr side of things. But if you look at other CNCF projects like OpenFunction, which is a functions runtime, really integrated Dapr into their core main runtime. So now when you deploy OpenFunction, it can also deploy Dapr for you. And the whole messaging ecosystem around that project is essentially Dapr. And this is really special to see other projects coming into Dapr and integrating with it to make their projects better.
Yeah, and then of course we can't forget workflows. I mean, workflows is, we then took actors and built, we were seeing people use actors for like single instance workflows or joining them all together themselves.
And sometimes doing the wrong things.
And doing many of the wrong things. There was great ways to use actors and terrible ways to use actors. But, what we realized was that, if you look at probably 80% of the applications, they got some sort of like sequential workflow inside them all. And it's like, well, you kind of need to orchestrate all those APIs.
Yeah, sequential or parallel, everything's a workflow in the end.
Yes. And I think what, the workflows API is kind of one that's, I think is going to transform the project. And I think what's amazing about Dapr is that you can put workflow. Oh,
we still need him.
Keep him alive. You can't die on us. Stay there. I think the workflows API can be combined with other APIs, can't it?
Yes, it can. I mean, you can orchestrate a complex workflow where, for example, you notify an upstream subscriber something has happened, so you use pub/sub, or your workflow needs to get a state or a secret, so you just use a key value secret store, state store, or secret store, or your workflow needs to call an external API using Dapr's HTTP endpoint functionality. You can do all of that. So workflows gives you the structure for how your application looks like and behaves and makes sure that it runs to completion. But then Dapr, once you integrate it into the workflow, can give you so much more. It's really a holistic solution.
So, here we are today at the 1.14 release, amazing 14 stable releases and tons of functionality in each one. We've got the 1.15 coming out in December timeframe. Where do you think the future of Dapr is? What's it look like? And we've been 5 years now, amazingly fast. It's incredible. What do you think the next roadmap is for Dapr as you look towards the future?
It's going to sound a little bit like a cliche, but when new challenges come, then I think challenges for application developers, that is, it's time for Dapr to meet those head on. One really good example is conversational API. An API that came in fairly recently. I mean, it's only going out in 1.15. And a lot of people were asking, hey, how does Dapr play with AI? And for a long time, we didn't have a really good answer because we don't just want to, tie Dapr into any new buzzword that comes out. We want to make sure that it's actually useful.
Yes.
But developers are being challenged with targeting a whole set of LLM providers and making sure that they have PII obfuscation and things like prompt caching and other features. So this really came as a top priority for Dapr to solve. So I really look at the future as just solving maybe these higher level abstractions, and it starts with workflows, but then it graduates into things like delayed pub/sub or cron jobs or conversational API and others.
Yeah, and I think the way I look at application development, what we're trying to do in the project is we're trying to keep up with the modern architectures that developers are working with today. And if you look back, 15 years ago, and it was like, where's microservices going? And then now it's a case of, you see a lot of procedural code being replaced by models as part of it all, and that's just a natural evolution of where Dapr is going as well. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the next thing then is graduation. Wow, what a thing! Yes, I mean graduation really is a defining moment for any project. How important is what's graduation mean to you? Like what's graduation for Dapr project mean in terms of how the project has evolved and where it's come?
Forget about how it's evolved. It means we get hoodies in the CNCF store.
Yes.
Cecil, if you're watching this, I got you, bro. And but more importantly, really, it means that the project is now very, very mature, that it has a good trajectory in terms of contributions, that it has a continuity, that it has a wide adopter base, which is very, very important to have a very diverse set of adopters that use it for, anything that we're seeing Dapr today in, like healthcare, manufacturing, gaming, yes, even space,
Yes.
So yeah, it's really, really important, and it also signals to the community that the project has been through something. It has seen something out in the wild. It's being battle tested, production hardened, and that they can really take a bet on it when they deploy it into production.
Yeah, and we've joined all the other graduated projects now, like Kubernetes and Envoy and things like that, which is a very special category amongst them all. And also, particularly, CNCF did kind of make their process a little bit more rigorous in the last.
It was definitely a lot more rigorous.
And so they really dived into the project. And for me, when you look at it all, they excelled spoke a lot about the excellent documentation, the contributor guide, the deep level of security we thought about the project. I think it's also important that from the very beginning we set up a steering and technical committee.
Yes, that's a good point. We actually had an open governance steering committee before the project went into CNCF. We did that while we were at Microsoft. We had a 4-member steering committee back then, if I'm not mistaken. And the project was actually labeled exemplary by the CNCF governance system, which was great. It's really good to see that we are doing the right things when it comes to continuity and governance and making sure that everyone in the project gets a representation.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are just thrilled that the project has graduated. And, we just thank all of the communities out there. It doesn't matter how much you've played as part of it, whether you've contributed PRs. We recognize that really it was a community that built us. So thank you if you've been part of the Dapr community. Say if you've contributed PRs or you've done a presentation or if you've just hung out in our Discord channel where we have thousands of people talk about Dapr. Thank you for everything you've done. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the amazing Dapr community to help us. and we're so proud. And in fact, you're a double graduate, aren't you?
Yes, for CADA and now for Dapr. Yeah, very happy.
Yeah, and are you going to write your book again?
My book, well, O'Reilly people, if you're watching this, then yeah, we might need a refresh on the book, because that was written in 2019 when Dapr was version 0.4, if you can believe that. So yes,
Exactly.
I definitely want to create a
decent bit of
second
it.
edition of the Dapr book.
So we'll thank you, community, and for that, you want to say congratulations, Dapr, and here's to the next 5 years.